Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome into another live edition of Till Mets Do Us Part here on YouTube, here on Twitter. That is the best place to find us, the best place to interact with myself and Ibby throughout the show. But of course, if you don't have the time to watch us right now, you can check the broadcast as soon as we're done recording on YouTube or on Twitter with an immediate instant replay. And you can also listen to the audio version of this podcast starting tomorrow morning, all courtesy of the Chop Sports Network, wherever it is you get your podcast. John Sapanaro out in Los Angeles, California. My co-host, Matt Ibby Ibanez, I think in his basement. I don't know what's going on. You need some drop ceilings, Ibby. How you doing?
I'm working on it, Sapanaro. You know, the salaries of teachers aren't that great over here in Jersey, but I'm doing what I can. Obviously, some camera issues, but I wanted to make sure that we got on time so we can get into everything because there's a lot to talk about. And yeah, a lot of feelings, as always, are being, bantered about when it comes to the Mets and Mets Twitter, and we have our own feelings as well. We'll get into all of that. The team up and down. Not exactly what we wanted to be talking about in terms of this Cubs series, but we'll get into all of it and then hopefully, calm some people down who continue to want to run away from this team.
Yeah, look, Ibby, I'm going to try to take a different tact here this week because for a lot of the season, especially recent memory, I've been kind of taking Mets Twitter to task over their reactions and what I would call overreactions. And it's not that I've had a change of heart with this. I still feel the same way. I still feel like there are some people that are overreacting to what's going on in the sense that the Mets are going to win 100 games more than likely. The Mets are almost a 99.99% lock to make the playoffs in some way, shape, or form. And when you're talking about this team historically, you can't look at any of those situations as a disappointment or a letdown or an embarrassment or any of the things that Mets Twitter has said over the last basically all season. Anytime the team loses a game, they should win. Anytime the team blows a game, anytime the team does anything outside of win and win in dominating fashion, it seems as though the old Wilpon hurt, the scars of being a Mets fan for a very long time seem to rear its ugly head. But instead of being angry with Mets Twitter this time, I'm going to just try to sort of talk people off the ledge because I think that that's a better tack to take because I don't want to be as divisive to Mets Twitter because a lot of people have been lashing back out. The drummer of Coheed and Cambria, who is apparently a Mets fan, lashed out on me on Twitter yesterday or 2 days ago because I told him to relax. Yeah, you missed that one.
I missed that one.
I argued with a famous rock and roll star about our Mets to the point where he called me a dickhole and then apologized for it. So listen, here's the thing.
Okay.
The Mets should beat the Cubs, Ibby. The Mets should have beaten the Cubs with Jacob deGrom on the mound. The Mets should have beaten the Cubs with Chris Bassett on the mound. It sucks. This has been an ugly series. The Mets really do need to win this game tonight, coming up in a little while, just so that everybody can kind of put their head on the pillow tonight and go, okay, it's fine. They're still going to be in first place regardless of what happens with the Braves if the Mets win. And that, I think, is the story of the positivity and the tack that I want to take moving forward. The Mets have basically 20 games left. Right now, the Mets are in the lead in the division. I know it's the narrowest of margins. It's a half game as we record this on a Wednesday afternoon, But with all of that being said, if the Mets just take care of their own business, the Braves can't catch them. You know what I mean? Like if the Mets win and win games that they're supposed to win, they can't be caught. And so that's the tack that I want to take this week. But that said, how are you feeling right now?
I'm feeling, after last night's game, I'll be, and again, we're always honest on here. We're not trying to pull punches or wax too poetic. Like last night's game, in my opinion, I thought it was kind of lackadaisical, especially for a Jake start. I thought it was kind of not the same energy that we're used to seeing, and I thought it showed on the field and it showed in the offense. And then, we've talked about how some guys seem to be tired, but the idea of giving guys breaks and things like that just haven't been there because of the lack of production from other people. Like the idea of giving Pete a day off, which I know he hit a homer last night, which is great. Hopefully that carries on to better production, if you will, for him. But I still think the guy needs a day or two. But when you're talking about putting the likes of a freaking Darren Ruff out there, who we still can't seem to take a break from, even with Mark Vientos coming up finally, great. But we haven't seen him that much. And he has seemed to look a little overmatched, but we'll talk about that a little bit as well, I'm sure. But yeah, it's it's been, and I'm with you. Like, we shouldn't continue the divisiveness and just breaking everything down in terms of ripping people, I should say. But like last night, I think I responded to one of your tweets and just saying how taking a break is a good thing, and I was pretty much off of Twitter last night. But the times that I hopped on, good God, man, it was people were eating themselves. Like, people were fighting and just going at it for like the dumbest things. And people that you often see interacting with each other, because we talk about the Mets community and everything for the longest time. Now it's good. But the fact that people are just taking this so seriously, like, look, we all want to win. We all want that. I don't know. Oh, wait. I think I see Carlos is in the chat. And there is something that I do want to say to Carlos, as if he's still here. I know he mentioned.
We'll jump into the comments real quick.
Yeah.
And just acknowledge everybody who's watching. Some frequent commenters. Stevie Mac. Every week that goes by, this team makes even less sense. LOL. Then we've got Carlos saying, "Hey guys."
Okay.
We got David in the chat. 100% Stevie. Carlos saying, "Sorry, I'm on the way down. Already jumped." And I think he's being a little facetious there, a little tongue in cheek. And then of course, people in the comments talking to each other. David talking to Carlos. David talking to us, and then Carlos talking to David. So welcome to everybody who's watching us live. We appreciate you guys tuning in. So sorry to interrupt, Ibby, but yeah, what did you want to say? What did you want to say to Carlos?
No, it's just, I know he mentioned to us last night in one of the tweets talking about how, the idea of people wanting more for this team is almost as if it's frowned upon. And it's not frowned upon. That's not what we're trying to get across. It's not the thing that I'm saying. It's not what you're saying. I think the main thing that you have been saying that I think people are misconstruing is the fact that 100 wins, best season in X amount of years, making the playoffs is the whole thing. Okay, look, we all want the division. That is not lost upon anybody. We want to win the division. Myself, John, Mets fans, we want to win. Even the ones that are a little more positive as opposed to negative, we want to win the division. Okay. The point that I think you have been trying to make, John, that people are missing is the fact that if this team wasn't locked into a playoff spot, we would be singing a different tune, a much different tune. If things were going the way that they are, and they didn't have this good of a record, and the idea of them already being in the playoffs, I think me and you would be singing the tune that a Carlos is singing, where it's like this team is falling apart in the sense it's letting go of things because there will be pressure from other teams in other divisions, meaning if you didn't win the division, you were not getting into the dance. But this team is getting into the dance, and I think that's why we are a little bit more lax, because we know we're going to be there, and we believe that this team in a playoff series has the pieces that can win. If this team did not have that luxury, we would not be sitting here defending the way that we are. But because they have this opportunity to be in, it kind of gives you the tiniest of cushions. Do I want that bye? Of course I do. Who wants to? Because if you go into an opening series and it messes with your pitching, and then you're gonna have, even if you win, you might have to start up with weaker pitchers in that next series. It kind of puts things, it kind of messes things up. So yes, of course, I want to be in that spot where I'm waiting to host somebody to come see us, of course, and then you can set up your pitching how you want it and then go from there. Of course I want that. Of course you want that. But I think people are missing the fact that, yes, this team is going to be there. And the fact that they are struggling right now in terms of the offense, look, pisses me off too. I thought last night was pathetic. I think the last two games against the Cubs have been really rough, no pun. But yeah, it's just, I think that's where people are kind of getting lost when it comes to the point that you've been trying to hammer home for the last 3 weeks now.
Yeah, you know what? I appreciate you saying that, because that is exactly where I've been coming from. I do want to jump into the comments real quick before I dive too deep on this, but Carlos said, didn't mean it about you guys. My bad if y'all thought that. I've just been killed on Twitter by others. Not you guys, though. We're brothers. I'm just more expressive and dramatic. And then he said, love you guys. And all good. We're not trying to take you to task here. Yeah, we love you too, man. We appreciate it. Just your I think what Ibby was saying is that your interactions with us have been kind of emblematic of what we've been getting from other folks. And maybe to your point, everything you said about my perspective is exactly spot on. I think we're in a world right now where it's somewhere between. Do you remember years ago, it was like the late 90s, early 2000s, where you had the Yankees and the Red Sox vying for the AL East, and there was no difference between winning the wild card and winning the division. And so neither one of them cared come September. Like, they were going to try to set themselves up to make the playoffs and have their rotation set as best as it was possible, because there was no reward for winning the division. Well, then they changed the playoff format, and then there became this huge difference of, like, you don't want to win 97 games and have your season come down to a 1-game playoff in the wild card round. Well, you still don't want to go into this playoff wild card series and have it throw your entire playoff rotation out of whack, especially if you're a team like the Mets that has this two-headed monster at the top of it with DeGrom and Scherzer. So I get that, but I think right now with the 3-game series, with the bye, I think we're in a sort of middle ground between where we were in the 90s and early 2000s with regards to the wild card not mattering because you're just making the playoffs and it doesn't matter. And I think that we're a little bit stuck in between that and where we have been the last few years, where you look at it and say, oh my God, you don't want any part of that wild card. Because I look at it this way, and I mean this sincerely, and this is not me relinquishing or giving up or anything like that on the division. I still want the Mets to win the division. I still want that bye. I still want the Mets to have home games, more home games than road games. I still want the Mets to set up their rotation however they think they need to. However, I'm not sure that a first-round bye in Major League Baseball is an advantage. I'm sorry, I'm not sure of that yet, because we've seen it before where a team has to fight tooth and nail to the end of the regular season to get in, and then they go on a run. You see another team take their foot off the gas pedal, and all of a sudden they get upset in the NLDS or whatever it might be. So I'm not relinquishing anything. I'm not conceding the division. I'm just saying we're so early in this format where I don't know if it matters. I might want the Mets to play more games. Yeah, does that mean they have to win another series? Sure. Does that mean that they have to burn some pitching? Sure. But I just look at this and I go, they're 100% locked. Their magic number is like 6. They're going to make the playoffs. If they weren't going to make the playoffs, I would be on a fucking soapbox screaming what a disappointment this season has been. But they're going to make the playoffs. And in the MLB, the way it's set up now, I say this all the time, it's not quite the NHL, but it is pretty close to a crapshoot out here. So, you want this to just get in and then do the best that you can. That's my perspective on it. And it has been since day one.
Yeah. And there's, again, I've been with you every step of the way. I think it really comes down to, and I think Casey Stern, obviously former guest of the show, he put out a little thing last night talking about, again, the selective memory of Mets fans, and talking about, just harping on the negatives and not thinking, basically a lot of the things that we just talked about here and we've been talking about, and how, the lack of confidence is something that they need to get over. But yeah, I just keep on bringing it back to, what we've been saying ad nauseum, and that's we've spoken about how much we wish we wanted, games that mattered in September. We have games that matter, and look, it's back and forth. Should they be winning these games? Yes. I am not defending them and saying that I'm okay with losing to the Cubs, to people I've never even heard of. I don't know who the hell Sampson is, but the fact that they lost to him with Jake on the mound last night, it pisses me off.
So shame on the umpires, by the way. I know that
don't get me started on the
make
umpires.
A difference, but that was the worst call.
That was terrible.
I've seen maybe all season long, and it comes in concert with the call from the Miami series where they said that the ball was stuck under the wall.
It made him go back.
Talk about the Mets being lucky. Oh my God, that's absolutely 2 of the worst calls I have ever seen in baseball. It's like the umpires want to be replaced by robots, not just for the strike zone, but for all the calls.
That's it. Just like the tweet I put out yesterday. It's almost as if the calls have been getting shittier and shittier by umpires because they know, hey, this is our swan song, man. Let's go out with a bang. So they talk about us and, making it the ump show as they always do. But as SNY so nicely did it when they faded from a clown right to Angel Hernandez, that's exactly what they are. They're a bunch of clowns.
Absolutely. absolutely ridiculous. And I know that there's some gray area on that, staying in the baseline play. But when there is a play at first, you should really have to stay in the baseline, especially when the throw is coming from the pitcher or the catcher in the direction of home plate. That guy was on the grass. He very clearly got in the way. And look, I don't think the Mets are going to win that game anyway because they did not hit enough. But maybe if you take another run or two off the board in that situation, now the Mets are in a more manageable situation for a team that has had an uphill climb as far as offense goes. I do want to jump back into the comments really quick.
Sure.
David said, I stay away from social media as much as I can, especially Twitter, because of the toxicity that comes with it. I'd rather talk to my Mets chat people and we complain to each other instead. And then Carlos says, about the chat, unfortunately, I'm addicted to Twitter. And
I'm with you.
David says, I couldn't deal with it. I'd lose my mind. You're stronger than me. And then James Dowling said, Joe DeMayo had a good point about winning the division over the wild card with the pitching rotation on Mets Pod. And Joe DeMayo, great stuff over on Mets Pod. And of course, been a guest on this show as well. And he's always got fantastic takes, but it's just, I just want to look at it in this perspective. Okay. Again, the Mets are going to make the playoffs. And I think Mets Twitter needs to relax to the fact that, guys, the spotlight is about to get a lot brighter, not dimmer. Every game is going to matter. Every play is going to matter. Every inning is going to matter. Every at-bat, every pitch is going to matter. The on Bowler and his decision-making is going to matter. The scrutiny on Billy Epler and did he do enough at the deadline and all that stuff. I think he did based on what happened at the deadline, even though at the time I rated the deadline a C+. I stand by that. I don't think it was a great deadline, but I do think that when you look at the landscape of what went on in Major League Baseball, he basically did kind of all that he could. So in that regard, I think it's fine, but the spotlight is about to get a lot brighter, not dimmer, and we need to acknowledge that. And like you said, this is the privilege of playing meaningful baseball and being in a pennant chase.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are starting to show their true colors when it comes to, I think of it back when, you would think that the Mets a couple years ago, where they start off hot. What was it? Maybe they opened up the year like 10-2 or something. You're like, how the hell is this team 10-2? And then you're thinking to yourself, am I really about to attach myself to this team fully and be ready to get hurt when they really shit the bed and then they go bad? It's almost as if I feel that Mets fans have been riding with this team, but now that fear is starting to creep back in and they're almost afraid to get hurt, because they're thinking, well, if I do this now, then it's going to lead to potential playoffs. Then they're going to lose. Then I don't want to deal with this. So then they start getting ahead of themselves, start shitting on the team now and saying, oh, they're not doing anything. They stink. They're terrible or whatever, because they're afraid of getting hurt. Guys, dating back to the Laurie Rubinson episode, enjoy the ride. This is a good team. They are in a funk right now. I'm not going to defend them right now. I can't, because some guys are hurt. We're seeing how important Starling Marte is to this lineup, and when he's not in it, how it's different. Hopefully, we'll see how he comes back. Hopefully, within the next couple of days, we'll find out whatever happens there. Did Max have his start today? Is it today or was it yesterday? I can't remember if it was today or yesterday. But
I think Max's start is today, with the intention of having him come back
for Monday.
He was throwing in the out yesterday. I think the intention is to have him come back when he's eligible.
Okay, so I think that would be potentially Monday or Tuesday of next week. So look, things are getting better, but at the same time, as constructed, this team should still be winning these games against the likes of the Cubs, with pitchers that they're rolling out there. And obviously, we have the Pirates are coming up as well. So these are games that they have to win, especially when you see the Braves get tripped up. That awesome game that they got tripped up with against the Mariners, with the walk-off homer and all that stuff. Paul Sewald can kiss my ass, but that's regardless. It's just, you're in for the ride, okay? Some of it's going to suck, some of it's going to be great, but you're in for this ride, and that's really all you can do at this point, because I said it last week, there's nothing else we can do. This is the team. You're going to go with it, and then that's it. I still think this team can go very far. I think a couple things have to break right here or there when it comes to health, but I think this team can still go very far, and I think it's time for people to just, like I said last week, get on or just get off and basically stay away.
Yeah, look, and again, we have a new commenter, maybe a first-time viewer, and I apologize if I'm saying the first name wrong. You can correct me in the comments. I think it's Aram. Aram Cruz says, playing not to lose isn't the answer, though. We still have the pieces that should be able to handle these weaker teams. We absolutely should be handling these weaker teams.
I do.
You know, maybe you just jumped in for the first time here. Neither one of us are apologizing for this team and what they've done over the last 2 days, what they've done, even making you sweat going back to losing the first game against the Pirates, losing the first game against the Marlins, even though they rebounded and won both those series, even losing the series going back before that to the Nationals. Like, this team should be handling these teams a bit better. Maybe not sweeping. I don't expect them to sweep the Nationals, sweep the Pirates, sweep the Marlins, sweep the Cubs, and roll through an unbelievable, like, you know, run off 15 wins in a row. But you do want them to kind of win a little bit more than they've won over this stretch. And we're not going to apologize for that.
No, and I also think that it doesn't help people's thought process of what a baseball team is supposed to do or what they expect them to do when you're watching the Braves win at the clip that they're doing. What the Braves are doing isn't the norm. Okay, it's incredible the season that they're having, but what's more incredible is they haven't been in first place that often. That shows you what this team is in New York. Okay, so the fact that, you know, the Braves continuously win is what is driving everyone mad, thinking that the Mets have to win every single game. Look, I want the Mets to win every single game, but sometimes it's not going to happen. Should they be beating these teams? 1,000%. I hated last night's game. It was a boring game, and I hate saying that because it was a Jake start. But the fact that I'm watching these guys be zombies during a start for the best pitcher in the world, in the universe, and these guys are sleepwalking, I'm not sitting here defending that. Last night's game sucked. It did. I expected a lot more.
I'll take it a step further, Ibby. I think last night's game was the worst game the Mets played all season. Start to finish.
I'm telling you, watching that game, it was boring.
They looked
it was bad.
Listless. They looked boring. Like, I agree with you. And I agree with people saying that they should be better than that. They should. They absolutely should. But there's a difference between acknowledging the fact that they are playing bad baseball right now, and then again, using words like, this is embarrassing. This team is losers. This team has given up. This is the same. This is this. It's not, you can't use those words when a team's going to win 100 games, when a team's going to make the playoffs. You can't use those words to describe it. And if you've been a Met fan, and again, your logic is, well, we've been hurt before, I go back to what I said last week. If you've been hurt before, you should know better. You watched real collapses. Every Mets fan that we talk to, for the most part, is old enough to remember 07 and 08. These are not ancient history, right? This is not 99. This is not, 88. This is not years like that. This is things that happened relatively recently that even younger Met fans can remember. If you lived through 2 real collapses, if you lived through 7 games up with 17 to play, losing to the Phillies, losing the division, and missing out on the playoffs, you know a collapse. That does not make a year where you're going to win 100 games for only the 4th time in franchise history, make the playoffs basically guaranteed for only the 10th time in franchise history, because another team is playing out of their mind good. That doesn't make it a collapse. Now, I don't know what the exact pace is right now. I don't have it in front of me. But last week when we recorded, I said that the Mets, since June 1st, have been on a 98-win pace over the course of a full season. The Braves are on a 115-win pace. Yeah. If you're on a 115-win pace, you tip your cap. I'm sorry. The Mets have played 650 baseball. The Braves played 850 baseball. If the Braves are going to play 850 baseball for the next 20 games, guess what, Mets fans? We ain't winning the division because you're not going to be better than 850.
You okay?
No.
I think, another thing, I shout out to Timothy Ryder, again, former guest of the show, great guy when it comes to posting things over at the Apple. I want to say it was probably a couple days ago now, so obviously these numbers are going to be a little bit off, but I'm pretty sure he posted the Braves record since the start of the second half, and he posted the Mets record since the start of the second half. And the difference at the time, now again, this is a couple days old, so it's probably changed since then. The difference was like two losses, 2 or 3 losses, something like
they
that.
had the same amount of wins, and the Mets had 2 more losses than the Braves, which gives you all the perspective that you need. And Ibby, to your point, even over the last couple of days, it really hasn't changed much because the Braves have won 1 more game than the Mets have won over that same span. So from the All-Star break to now, the Braves have won. The Braves have the 3-game better in the loss column than the Mets. 3 games. You would think that based on some people's reaction, the Braves are 15 games better than the Mets.
And you're talking about that, the word that everyone banters about now, and that's narratives. And, the fact that the narrative is that the Braves are this unstoppable force and the Mets are falling apart and they stink. But then you throw a number like that out there, and then you'd be like, oh, well, the Mets aren't playing that good, though. But it's like, well, clearly they're playing good enough, because if they're only 2 games worse than the team that you think is unbeatable or unstoppable, clearly there's some kind of middle ground here where they're pretty much similar, if you will. But I just think that people are just overreacting. I want more. Okay, I see there's more comments rolling in, but I want more. I hate watching them lose to these no-name pitchers and teams that are just giving up. But another thing that maybe this Mets team has to learn about is that when you are considered one of the best, that every single night, that team, they're going to give you their best because they want to beat you. Because we talk about all the time how we're always defending the fact that, teams are saying or fan bases are saying, oh, the Mets, that was their World Series. That Dodgers series, that was their World Series. That's why they stink now, because they put everything into that, and now they're losing to these bad teams. Well, it goes both ways, where it's like the Mets also have to realize that these teams that are coming in, maybe it is their World Series when they're not playing well, and basically they're trying to play out these dog days of September where they're just trying to get through the season and end it. If they're bad, well, guess what? This is their biggest shot. They're coming to New York. They're facing the big bad Mets. Well, we want to kick your ass now. And now sometimes you don't realize you think you could sleepwalk through and beat a bad team. Everyone gets paid, man. Everyone gets paid. They're going to come here. They're going to try to kick your teeth in too. So sometimes you really got to knuckle up and just be ready to go, because sometimes you're gonna get caught.
And for some of these teams, this might be their job, right? You look at a team like the Cubs, you look at David Ross. Like, David Ross wants to finish strong. That's why he's managing these games against the Mets like they are the Cubs World Series. The Cubs ain't going anywhere. The Cubs got 80 some odd losses. Nothing's happening for them. But he doesn't want to finish weak. He doesn't want to limp to the finish line, because maybe he'll get fired if they do. And maybe if he finishes strong and beats some teams they shouldn't beat, maybe they'll give him a little bit of a bump here. So I want to jump into the comments. We've got so many coming in, some just funny random ones, and some, very topical for what we have going on. So up first, Carlos Ramos says, hashtag, we all hate Paul Sewald.
Guy stinks.
I don't disagree with that at all.
Stinks.
We got Chris Torres, who jumped in a little bit ago. He said, yo, what's good, bros? It's been a frustrating couple of days, but we can go on a crazy run. The offense just needs to click and catch some breaks. I would agree with that. I know it seems like an oversimplification, but I think the offense has been in a funk. The bottom of the order has picked it up a little bit, Ibby. The top of the order and the middle of the order needs to really get firing on all cylinders. It's been a little bit of a roller coaster with those guys, especially missing Starling Marte. But if they just click a little bit and catch a couple breaks, even everybody wants to shit on Darren Ruff, and we can talk about this coming up in a second. And listen, Darren Ruff should be shit on. He's been absolutely terrible. He's been the worst trade acquisition based on OPS plus. Like, he's been bad. But even in that at-bat that nobody wanted him to take, and Vientos should have taken that at-bat and all that stuff, you know what? He hit the ball hard. He hit it right at the right fielder. Like, what are you going to do? You know what I mean? Jump back to Carlos Ramos. That's what we all expect, Chris. Welcome to the madhouse. And then Amram says, LOL, exactly. Being a Mets fan, it's the loony bin. And, Chris jumping back in saying, I've seen too many bad years. This ain't no collapse. 07, 08, cough, cough, LOL. True. And then just furthering what we've been saying, Aram says, it sucks when you lose the first game of a series, though, because it sends a negative impact for the squad. Washington was the worst game of the season. We have and then he follows up by saying, we have a great team. I don't necessarily disagree with some of that. And then Stevie Mack, who's usually on our side, he says, if this was an actual collapse, we'd be in third place right now. That is exactly my point.
Yes.
Those are what collapses look like.
Yes.
Then we've got Aram saying baseball is a humbling game. Of course it is. There's just so much here. Chris Torres saying, I agree, it was a horrible game last night, but remember, the Mets have a target on their back, and bad teams are gonna want to beat the best team. And that's just how it is, guys. So the comments that you guys have been throwing out there are absolutely fantastic and absolutely spot on. Ibby, before we head into the break, I do want to address the Vientos not taking that at bat and Ruff taking the at bat. I made my comments very known on Twitter that night. I will repeat them coming up here in just a moment, but I want to get your take on it. Bases loaded, 2 outs, lefty in the game. Buck Showalter goes to Darren Ruff, leaves Mark Vientos on the bench. What were your thoughts in the moment?
It's going to sound ridiculous because I watched that and I then listened to a man that we all respect and love in Keith Hernandez, where he responded by saying, why not Mark Vientos in that spot? And his response was, you can't put the rookie in that spot. You go with the veteran because you trust the veteran more than to put a rookie in that position. And I feel so wrong saying that I'm going against Keith Hernandez because I feel like I sound like an idiot. Like, who the hell am I? That's freaking Keith Hernandez. But for me, when I'm watching, it's like I felt as though to this point, I still feel to this point, that I've seen so much of Darren Ruff and seeing so much of Darren Ruff fail when his job, again, we've talked about this with JD Davis, your job is to come in and hit lefties, and you can't do it. You're continuously put in those spots, and you can't do it. Now, look, I'm not going to sit here and defend Mark Vientos and say he's lighting the world on fire. The opportunities that he's gotten, he's looked really overmatched. He really has. But at the same time, I really think I would almost take the chance with the rookie in that spot, mainly because, and I mentioned this to one of our good followers over on Facebook. I mentioned to him because we go back and forth when it comes to Ruff, and I feel as though Darren Ruff is in such a bad spot that the pressure on I can't even imagine the pressure on this guy right now, because I don't care if you shut off social media. I don't care if you're not someone who's constantly on and reading everything everyone's saying. People are saying something, at least when it comes to you as a ball player, if you're not performing at a certain level or you're not giving what you need to be giving in terms of what your role is. This guy knows he's not delivering. So every single time he goes up there and fails, it's mounting more and more pressure. And I get, hey, we put him out there one time. Maybe he breaks through. Maybe he gets one, and it can get the weight off his shoulders, and we can get this thing going. But I wasn't a fan of it because, again, I'm so angry to the point where I've had enough of Darren Ruff and watching him fail that I think almost as if putting him out there is the negative that's even not helping him. I really don't. That's the way I felt about it.
Well, look, I'm gonna disagree with you because I thought Ruff was the right move in that spot, but I understand the sentiment. I understand. Look, give the kid a shot. The kid's been tearing the cover off the ball. Nobody was championing more for bringing up Vientos than I was. I mean, you were too, and there's plenty of people on Mets Twitter also echoing that same sentiment. So this is not me backtracking, but I do look at it the way Keith Hernandez looked at it. I look at it, and look, Ruff has been abysmal. I don't want to watch Darren Ruff take at bats. But when I looked at it, I said, look, man, Vientos has had 5 at bats. He's 0 for 5. He's not playing every day because the Mets still want to give Vogelback the majority of the at bats at DH against right-handed pitching. So now he's going to come up in the biggest at bat of his life, in the biggest spot that he has ever been in. And you're expecting him to, on a small scale, be what we all said you don't expect out of this kid, which is be a savior, right? Like, I know that you're not giving him the God complex here, but you're saying, look, we want you to win this game, basically. We want you to come out here and win this game. So I didn't mind going to Ruff in that spot. I also look at it as Ruff knows, Buck knows, Epler knows. Everybody knows that Ruff's chances are numbered. If Ruff doesn't start producing, he is not going to be on a playoff roster.
Right.
He's not. He's in a 1 for 40 or whatever the hell it is up to now. So if he doesn't start getting it going, he is going to be off the playoff roster. So I look at this look, this might have been Darren Ruff's last chance. That's how I looked at it. So I can't argue it either way. If Vientos got up there, and
I get it. Yeah,
I wasn't going to be angry. I wasn't going to be like, "What the hell? You can't have Vientos." I just looked at it like, yeah, I didn't mind going to Ruff in that spot. David in the comments agrees with you. We're not expecting to be a savior, but at least he's given the chance. That's my opinion. And look, I don't disagree. I don't disagree with the thought process. I disagree.
Right.
If it were me running the team, I would have sent up Darren Ruff in that spot. Stevie Max says, prove to people you actually exist. David also said, yes, take the chance. Ruff hasn't shown anything. Vientos, if anything, to me, would boost his confidence that he can do something. Unfortunately, Buck doesn't see it that way. But again, I think that maybe that's going to turn because, look, Mets are facing a lefty tonight, and Mark Vientos is there batting fifth, Ibby. You know, so he went from batting eighth to batting fifth, even though he's mired in an 0 for 5 with his major league career. And then going back a bit, James Dowling said, too many veterans on this team to not figure it out. I agree there.
It's good.
And David said, with regards to your comment about teams wanting to beat the Mets, young prospects with bad teams are hungry and they want to show that they belong. I get that, but it is frustrating. That said, Ibby, let's jump into the break real quick because we're a little bit over the 30-minute mark. For everybody watching live, it's not a real break. It's just an ad break for the audio version of this show. We've got something we've got to just throw in a couple ads. We will be back in 10 seconds exactly. It is John Sapanaro. It is Matt Ibby Ibanez. It is Till Mets Do Us Part, live on Twitter, live on YouTube. We'll be right back. 10 seconds. Yo, I promised you guys 10 seconds.
That was 10 on the dot.
Back. Yeah, and listen, everybody says that is quick, and we are back here on Till Mets Do Us Part, live on YouTube, live on Twitter, talking all things Mets going on this week. John Sapanaro, Matt Ibby Ibanez. Ibby, the other thing I want to bring up with the thought process, and this is one that I had a beef with. I'm going to be honest. You know, there's been another person, fairly or unfairly, kind of like the way J.D. Davis was the focus of my hatred and anger for the first half. This person has quickly become the pretty much the source of my anger, and that is Terrence Gore. Okay, I understand that Terrence Gore has been on back-to-back World Series teams. I understand that Terrence Gore is like the fastest person in the world. I get that. Terrence Gore has had almost more at-bats with the Mets this year than he has had with any other team he's ever played on. He's already taken 2 at-bats. He's not a plus in the field.
Right.
He's, except for the fact that he's fast and he can get to stuff, of course. But, you know, you're not looking at an elite defender. You're not looking at a guy who does anything with the bat. You're looking at a designated pinch runner. I understand that he did not represent the tying run, and this is less of an indictment on Buck's decision-making and more of an indictment on roster construction. If you have the fastest man in baseball, one of the fastest people in baseball, and the slowest runner on your team, Daniel Vogelbach, who has a hamstring injury to boot that he's trying to nurse, gets on first base in the bottom of the 8th inning, and you do not run for him with Terrence Gore, there is no reason for Terrence Gore to be on this roster, period. I'm sorry. I get what he was trying to do with Givens. I understand Givens is a good athlete. He's actually, by all accounts, he's pretty quick, right? But I don't understand. Look, if you leave Givens in the game, you lose the DH.
Right.
Well, if you pinch run with Terrence Gore, you're going to have to pinch hit for him again if you wind up tying up that game, because you're not going to have Terrence Gore take a meaningful at bat at DH in extra innings where one swing could win or lose you the game. So either way, if that spot comes up again, you're going to have to go to a pinch hitter. You're not going to have the pitcher, and you're going to have Gore hit. So then why not use Gore? What is he on this team for?
To be honest, I did not expect to be talking about Gore. It's Gore at all, ever. But yeah, I'm with you. I did not understand it at all because, again, we've had conversation before where where it's similar to what we talked about when Vientos wasn't being called up. We're like, if this guy's doing all this stuff and you don't want him on this team, then why is he in this organization? Same thing. It's the same concept here. If you're going to have someone take up a spot on this team and the prime position for that person to be used, and you are opting not to use said person, I don't know why the hell you're here. I do not get it. I mean, I've seen people, there are some, I guess you want to call them Gore truthers on Twitter. I don't know, defend the guy. I don't get it. I mean, in that spot, I was legit baffled because it's like, this is your for you, Terrence Gore, this is your time to shine. Like, this is we'll call you in a pinch run.
Gore, this is your life.
Yeah, this is your moment. Here we go. We're gonna pull out the fat guy. We're gonna put you when you're gonna run for him. And it doesn't happen. They opt for the pitcher instead, lose the DH. Like I didn't understand it, and I'm not gonna have too much anger towards Terrence Gore because I don't want to think about Terrence Gore really. So I hope you can work through it. I thought the JD one was warranted, but I hope you can work through these issues. But we'll continue to do it here because this is our therapy session.
Listen, the reason why I bring it up is off the heels of what we ended the first half talking about, which was the Darren Ruff Vientos situation. And look, you could argue on both sides whether or not you should give the kid who's had a great season in AAA, who's got an OPS of over 900 against lefties this season, if you should have given him a chance to drive in a bunch of runs and potentially put the Mets ahead in a game that they were trailing, right? You could argue that fact. Or if you should go to Ruff, the veteran who's hit lefties his entire career, regardless of the fact that he spent time in the Korean baseball organization, like whatever it is, you could argue that. There are both sides to it. Even what James Dowling said, maybe let Vientos hit and let Vogelback rest that hammy. Yeah, if you want to give Vientos a starting right-hander as a DH, you could argue that. My point on the Terrence Gore thing is that the guy is here to do one thing. And if you're not going to let him do that one thing, then what's the point? Yeah. Now, I get it. You know, look, this will be a much bigger conversation if when Starling Marte is ready to come off the injured list, Terrence Gore is still on the team. That'll be a bigger, because where else are they going to go?
Bigger, yes, right.
Beatty got hurt. Like, where else are they going to go to this roster spot? But you know what? Ryan Finkelstein made a great comment. You know, he was on this show a couple weeks ago. He and I were going back and forth on Twitter, and it made sense. He goes, I'd rather have Travis Jankowski on this team. Travis Jankowski is otherworldly fast. He is a plus defender in all three outfield spots, and he's never been a big hitter, but he's taken more serious at-bats than Terrence Gore has, and early in the season, he provided a little bit of a spark. Now, I'm not saying that Travis Jankowski is the second coming of, prime Grady Sizemore or anything like that. He's not. But he's a more legitimate baseball player than Terrence Gore. Terrence Gore is just really fast. That's it. Yeah. He's like a track star playing baseball. So for me, I don't get that logic. I hope this resolves itself. I hope when Marte comes back, when Scherzer comes back, when McGill comes back, that some of these guys that are frustrating to us, including Gore, are off the team. But I just don't understand, if you're not going to use him in that spot, then why is he rostered? It doesn't make sense to me. And honestly, it gives me more faith in Buck because I'm sitting there going like, Buck doesn't want to even use this guy.
Yeah. No, you're 100% right. And I think, again, this contradicts what actually happened. It's like, I look at it and I go, once Marte's here, we've always talked about how Marte's speed is the difference for the lineup, and why not have that speed at some point during the game. I would understand it more, but the fact that you didn't use him in that spot, it contradicts itself. It doesn't make any sense. So like you said, I think a lot of things are going to correct themselves once the ones that we are waiting for are healthy, come back. And I think it's going to really right the ship, if you will, in terms of our questions of the roster construction.
Yeah, I want to jump back into the comment section here and just, appreciate everybody saying what they're saying. Carlos says, like this, guys, the comment section keeps growing. And then Stevie Mack says, hit the like button too. And then David said, one of them came from my Mets chat. Glad he can make it. We're glad that all of you guys are here. whether you're returning viewers, returning commenters, or first timers. You know, we had a lot of people at different points kind of coming in and out, people watching for the first time. And I really, really appreciate all of that. The other thing, Ibby, is that you just mentioned, you know, the roster is going to look fundamentally different in about a week or so.
Yes.
We might see David Peterson in the bullpen. We're going to see Tyler McGill in the bullpen. We're going to see Drew Smith in the bullpen. We're going to see Starling Marte back, and we're going to see Max Scherzer back. We've already gotten Luis Guillorme back. So for everybody that's looking at this team, to go back to the first half rhetoric, for everybody who's looking at this team frustrated and saying guys need days off and the depth is being exposed and let's give some other guys some burn, I agree with you, but I think we're going to see some different stuff coming up, you know, after this weekend is over. People are going to come back and, you know, there's going to be some tough decisions to make. But look, guys like Joely Rodriguez might not be on this team. So as frustrating as some of these people have been, you know, you're not going to see them. And this team is potentially going into the playoffs in a very good spot in terms of people being available to play for this team the way that you envisioned it when you looked at this team, you know, in the offseason when it was built, and then at the deadline when it was built. You know, you're looking at something that could be a huge boost for this team.
Yeah, and one thing that bothers me is that, like, when you mention players like this coming back, and this is excluded. I'm not talking about Marte here. I'm not talking about Max here. I'm talking about the others. And it's like, the thing that people automatically jump on, they're like, well, who's to say, like, because everyone has the savior complex, and we talk about this a lot as well. Everyone thinks, oh, well, you think McGill's going to save you? You think Joey Lucchese's going to save you? You think Drew Smith's going to save? Like, it's not that. Again, we have to look back at how this team was built from the offseason. They went with filling out the team, having depth, and having people always being able to fill in so you never really missed a beat, as opposed to, again, you're never going to have superstars at every position. So the idea isn't that I think Tyler McGill is going to save us. It's the fact that I think Tyler McGill can be a piece that can definitely go an inning, maybe even 2 innings, that helps give some break to the guys like Ottavino and Lugo, so then they could be used for extra innings, and it lengthens that bullpen. Is Joey Lucchese going to do anything? I have no idea, so I'm not putting too much stock in him. Do I think Drew Smith coming into a role again on this team, maybe where it's a little bit lesser than what he had before he got hurt? Maybe that's going to bring back to what we got in the beginning of the season, where he was a little bit hotter as opposed to where he left when he was cold. Yes, I think that all those things are possible. So I think people need to understand that it's not that we think these people are going to be the reason why we win. I think it's more so that these players are going to be the reason why the other people we expect that we expect to help us really win are going to be better rested, and that's going to be the reason why we win more games.
I mean, you just look at the roster construction with the return of a guy like Luis Guillorme, and I like Guillorme a lot. I've always liked Guillorme, and Guillorme is one of those players. He has made himself better every turn. He's sort of like a poor man's Brandon Nimmo in a way, right? People who listen to the show for a long time, live commenters who are with us right now, they might not know, but you know, when Brandon Nimmo first came up, I liked him just fine. I thought Brandon Nimmo was kind of a 4th outfielder, and I was wrong about Brandon Nimmo, and I've been the first to admit that I was wrong about Brandon Nimmo. He's made himself better defensively than he ever could have been. You know, he's made himself into a better power hitter. He's made himself into a less patient hitter in the fact that he used to be too patient looking for walks. Now he jumps on pitches. He's more aggressive. Brandon Nimmo has made himself into a very good starting outfielder in Major League Baseball. And I think Luis Guillorme is one notch lower than that, because I just think that his hit tool is probably a notch lower than what Brandon Nimmo's is. He doesn't have a lot of power, and not that that's the be-all, end-all, but it does hurt you because teams can play you a certain way. But you just look at the way that Luis Guillorme is an asset to this team. He is a plus defender at second base. He is a plus defender at shortstop. He is a plus defender at third base. And now he gives you a contact bat who has a good eye, who takes good at bats, who has bat to ball skills. So you know what? In a pinch, if you absolutely had to, somebody was hurt, or you had to go this lineup a certain route, you could probably bat him second for a game or two. And then most of the time he fills in as your 8 or 9 hitter, and he gives you a boost. when you look at what you had when he was gone, you had Devin Marrero. Devin Marrero played on the Long Island Ducks this year. So, you look at the boot, do I think Guillorme is going to be the difference between the Mets winning or losing a World Series? No, outside of the fact that maybe he makes some electric play on defense, which is his best tool, right? Outside of that, I don't think Guillorme is going to be a quote-unquote difference maker. But he is a difference maker when you're talking about the 25th, 26th, 27th, 28th person on the roster.
Yes.
Because a lot of teams are running out guys who are like Devin Marrero. The Mets are running out a guy who, based on the new rules, might win a Gold Glove as a utility player.
He better.
So when you look at that, that's where I look at this roster construction. And Ibby, I'm gonna just shout out in the comments first to Aram, who says, in like Flynn, a Mets fan since all I know. I fully enjoyed our last World Series win in '86 and suffered the other appearances. I believe that we can do it this year. It won't be easy, but that is part of the ride or die. Totally agree with that. Echoes everything that we've been saying. And then Stevie Mack has a comment. I'll throw it to you first. Does Eric Chavez get any blame since the hitting has been such a problem lately?
This is a question that I wish I was able to really ask Hojo about when we had him on. I kind of forgot to throw it in there. It's like when it comes to hitting coaches, I feel as though maybe you're just talking about a philosophy, and maybe that's where you can really get on a coach if they're putting the wrong ideas in a player's head. But when it comes to baseball, I've always felt that it's for as much as we preach team and talk team, it's very much an individual sport where it's you make the throws, you have to hit the ball, you have to catch the ball. It's not anybody else. So when it comes to blaming a hitting coach, I know that hitting coaches and pitching coaches are the first ones to go or the first ones to be blamed when something is being if something isn't going the way you thought it would be going. They're the first ones to get the axe. But again, it's on the players. The players are the ones that got to go up there and hit the ball. Like, that's it. Like, I have a hard time blaming Eric Chavez when, Francisco Lindor goes up there and strikes out with 2 men on, or Brandon Nimmo watches strike 3, or like anything like for me at least, I have a hard time really putting a blame on a hitting coach unless we're talking about just an overall fundamental shift that just didn't work, where I can talk about last year where we're talking about Hugh Quattlebaum, if he was ever really real, and the stuff that he was putting into the players' heads, and just seeing the difference between that type of approach, that overly analytically driven approach, versus the more simplistic approach that Chavez has brought to this team. We've seen what it does. Baseball has its ups and downs. Again, we talk about ebbs and flows. I think a lot of people just assume that hitting a baseball is easy when it's really not freaking easy at all.
Yeah, and Aram is with you on it. He said, no, players play the game. And then he said it wasn't Chili's fault. The team didn't perform. He didn't take their at-bats. Said, nor is it Eric's fault, my take. And then Stevie, kind of with the rebuttal, says, I feel they're not grinding out the at-bats as much as they were early in the season. Now, that is a fair critique. I will say that.
I'll give you that.
They are not grinding out the at-bats as much as they were earlier in the season. But I think, again, that's more of a reflection on the players than the organizational philosophy. You mentioned Hugh Quattlebaum, and people were like, what is this? I don't understand. You see the Mets, you watch them take pitches right down. You have to get into hitters' counts, and you have to make the pitcher throw a lot of pitches. Well, we saw in one season the difference. The Mets, how many times have the Mets gotten starting pitchers over 20 pitches in the first inning? How many times have the Mets knocked starting pitchers out early because they're grinding out at bats? When they're going well, this philosophy is working. I do think that they're a little fatigued right now. I think
they look tired.
Tired. I think Pete is tired.
Pete's definitely tired.
I don't want to sit here and say, look, they need to refocus against, or that they're not focused against some of these lesser teams. But I do think it's possible, man, because I think it's human nature. Like, they know, baseball players know that they're getting paid and the opposition is getting paid. And so you have to be out there You have to give it your all every time. But like, if you think the Mets don't look at the roster and the record of the Dodgers compared to the roster and the record of the Cubs and go like, I think we should win this one, fellas. I'm not saying that they're like, we're not going to try. We're going to just win by showing up. They don't do that. But I think they go into it with a certain like, okay, yeah, we can do this one. We can do this one easier. And so sometimes when you're talking about that kind of philosophy in September, at the end of a long season, when you've given everything you've gotten so far and you've had success so far and you're tired and your legs aren't as under you as they would have been in April and May, and going back to what we said before, the other team is trying to play spoiler. There are young kids on the Cubs specifically that are like, yo, we are here to stay. We're trying to prove that we're major leaguers. Jacob deGrom, who? Okay, we're going to try to score runs off Jacob deGrom. Chris Bassett, he's had a good year. Well, you know what? I'm ready to ball. I'm ready to play today. You know, you have that, and then that's what happens. You have this kind of perfect storm where it looks like the Mets kind of forgot how to play baseball for 2 days. It happens.
Yeah, you have these hiccups. They're all part of a baseball season. Look, we can say it all we want. People can misconstrue it however they want. Or we can say, look, you'd much rather see them go through a little bit of a slump right now as opposed to later in the season, or to like, you know, play sharp, but the Braves play sharp, then they get swept by the Braves that last week of the season, and then all of it's all for naught, and then you play in that opening round, like all that nonsense, whatever it may be. Yeah, I just think that I don't even know. I don't even know where I was going, but
I will tell you this: the Giants are currently leading the Braves in the top of the 8th inning, 4-1.
Yes.
The Braves do have 2 on, 1 out, and Acuna up at the plate, but you know, we'll see how this breaks. But right now, we have a rare situation where the Braves are playing a game on the West Coast during the day. Out here on the West Coast, I should say, during the day, and the Mets are playing a night game, and so the Braves are going first. And now the Mets are going to know what they need to do to either, you know, add ground or stay in first place. And, you know, I know that's, look, people say that they don't watch the scoreboard. Players don't watch the scoreboard. In September, if you're in it, you're watching.
Everyone's watching.
Every player,
especially now.
I would not be surprised if every player right now in the Mets clubhouse is watching the end of this game. You know what I mean? Like, that's what you're looking at. Right now, you got a little bit of
create that space.
Little bit of a downtime before that game starts. And Acuna strikes out, 2 outs, 2 on, top of the 8th. I'm not going to do play-by-play, I promise, but I am looking forward to seeing the Braves potentially lose this game. And then the Mets can put a little bit more distance, and then they've got a 4-game set at home with a very, 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 very beatable Pittsburgh Pirates team. So, you know, Ibby, it's nice to see that the Mets, for once, aren't setting the pace. I think that's another thing. I think we talk about pressure being a privilege, and I agree with that. And I think this Mets team is resilient enough and strong-willed enough to rise to that. But they have been in a case lately where the last several nights they've played first, and the Braves get to sit back and watch. And if the Mets lose, I'm not saying the Braves are like, oh, we don't have to win. We don't want to gain ground. But, you know, it's sort of like a little bit of the pressure is off. So now the Braves are playing with all the pressure, and I want to see how that translates on the field. And, you know, Aram kind of agrees. He said, I think they're just in a funk. Hopefully tonight will be different. And I think that sets up for what we have going on right now.
And I think to Aram's point, it's like, and what people are missing is teams go into funks, things happen. And again, it's bringing it all back to what you were saying before, how people are going well above and beyond to say that this team is a disgrace and it's a joke and all this nonsense. It's like there's a difference between a team being a disgrace and a joke and a team that's just having a rough patch, because we know what this team is. We have seen more than enough baseball to know what this team is. So knowing the difference and understanding the difference between a funk, just an overall rough patch, and a disgrace are 2 very distinctly different things. Okay, and understanding that is going to help so many people, specifically on Mets Twitter. So many people, you know, understand things a lot more. I'm not saying you can't be frustrated. I've never said that. I believe you're more than welcome to be frustrated about these things. It's fine. But yeah, just understanding that, look, this Cubs series to this point, it sucks. It has sucked. It has. You want more. You want to do better. Go out there, win the game tonight, and build off of it. That's all you can do.
I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to put you on the spot
Let's go for it.
So the Mets are at 89 wins right now. They are 11 wins away from 100 wins. They have, including tonight, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 games left.
Okay.
Do they get to 100 wins?
Can you tell me who's on the schedule?
4 with
Pirates?
Pittsburgh.
Okay.
4 with Pittsburgh at home, 3 at the Milwaukee Brewers, 3 at the Oakland A's, 2 at home with Miami, 3 at the Braves, and then they finish at home versus the Nationals.
Yes, they will get to 100 wins.
I agree. I'm
confident when I say that. They will get to 100 wins. Yes.
I think the Mets will get to 100 wins. I think they will finish this season. And we'll obviously track this progress because we're going to be on a bunch of times between now and the end of the year, of course. 3 more times before the playoffs start, to be exact. But I think the Mets will get to the second best record in franchise history. And if they get over 100 wins, they will do that. The Mets have won 100 games 3 times in the past. Of course, 86 being the high water mark, 108. The Mets are not going to get to 108.
No.
But the other 2 times they finished with exactly 100 wins. And I think this Mets team will finish with like 101 or 102 wins. That's how confident I am in this team still, despite the recent struggles of the last week. I look at a lot of beatable teams on this schedule. I think the Mets are going to trend in the right direction. I think it's going to start today. They're going to start to come out of that funk. And oh, by the way, the threat is over, inning over in San Francisco. The Giants still up 4-1 over the Braves as we head to the bottom of the 8th inning.
Yeah, and I'm with you. I truly like you're rattling off those teams, and I'm counting on my finger. I'm just like where I think they can get those wins. And yeah, I do think that this team, they're 89. I think this team can definitely get to 100, potentially even break 100, whether it's 101, 102. I definitely think that they can get there, and I'm confident. I really am. I know that it sucks right now, but I do think once some of these horses come back, it's going to right the ship a little bit more. But I also think until that happens, some other guys are going to step up and provide, because they realize that sometimes you're not always going to be 100%, but you still got to go out there and perform. And I think getting your teeth kicked in and seeing what people are saying about you as a team, because we all know players see it, whether it's on social media, whether they're hearing idiots on the radio, whatever it might be. They hear what they're saying, and they're going to want to go out there, especially tonight. Drew Smyly's been pitching well. It's a lefty. The fact that the Mets have had problems with lefties, I would think that tonight is an extra, motivational thing. If the Braves do lose this game, going out there and saying, hey, the Braves just lost. Potentially, the Braves just lost. We're facing the lefty. Let's get our shit together. Let's get things right, and let's kickstart this thing and finish strong. And let's go to where we have been working so hard to be.
Yeah, and I misspoke slightly. I miscounted. I said 19 games left. I actually have 20 games left, including today. I did not count today when I said that. Okay. So I do want to know, there's a lot of people watching. Before we get out of here, I would like to know what their confidence level is. So with the Mets having 20 games left to play, and they are 11 games away from winning 100 games, do you think that the Mets will get to 100 wins? I do. Ibby does. I think they'll get just over 100 wins. I think they're going to get to 101. Or 102. But if you're in the comments right now, if you're watching this live, I do want to know what your take is. I do want to take a little bit of a temperature, because we do have some people, if there's some of the people that have been watching this entire live stream, that maybe feel differently from us. And we just had a couple more people jump on the live stream too. So once again, want to know, with the Mets having 20 games, including tonight, left, do you think they get to 100 wins? They're 11 games away. And Ibby, when you look at it that way, that's not even that good of a record. That's how much confidence I have in this team, right? That's the Mets going 11-9 to finish the season. That'll get them to 100. I think the Mets are going to go better than 11-9. I'm sorry. Everything I've seen from this team leads me to believe that they will. I don't know if they're going to go on some crazy streak where they're going to sweep the Pirates and sweep Oakland and sweep, Milwaukee. And, look, if they ever go on a streak like that, I could see them, if they come out of this Pirates Milwaukee series in really, really good position, then I could see them threatening for that 108 because,
if they go 4-2, if they go 4-2, or what is it? It's 4 games, so 7. If they go 5-2 or even 6-1, we've been saying for the longest time, we've been waiting for like one of those runs, and maybe we won't get it. I don't know, but if they can do that in these next 2 series, then you can threaten for a lot more than what we're saying right now. Yeah, definitely.
And by the time we record next week, all of these games that we mentioned heading into the next off day will all be in the rearview mirror. So obviously the Cubs coming up in a little under an hour. Then we've got the Pittsburgh series, and then the Milwaukee series will have wrapped up by the time we record because they have they play a day game getaway day at 11:10 West Coast time for me. So, all of those games will have wrapped up. So we will have been through another 8 games. And if they go, like you said, if they go 6-2, they go, even 5-3 over the course of this 8, I'm going to feel pretty good about their chances to, get above 100 wins. Now, if they were ever able to go on an absolute tear, well, maybe that's the thing that Met fans are looking for in terms of confidence. Carlos says maybe, and he said just not playing well. I think he means right now, which is fair. James Dowling says yes, they will get to 100 wins. Okay. And David says yes, I'm confident with the schedule they have. If it was another division, most fans wouldn't be as panicking. That's the other thing, man. If they did not have the Braves with them right now, we would be talking about, like, do the Mets even need to get to 100 wins because they would have this division wrapped up. So, sometimes that's also part of it. Then we look at, they're basically doing the same thing they were in the first half. I think it's just mental and physical fatigue. And then James Dowling says, care more about the playoffs than getting to 100 wins, but I'll take the 100 wins too. And look, that's been the metric, right? Because even when this team has been great, it'd be 100 wins. It tied second best number in franchise history. They've only gotten number 3 other times, and so I think it's, I want the playoffs too. Instead, if you had, pick one, or
of course,
pick playoff success at 90 wins or 100 wins. Obviously, I'm picking the 99, success. The 98 wins, whatever. Yes. I don't care if that's their wild card. Give me the playoff success. But I do think for this Mets team, with a new ownership trying to set a new standard, I do think that winning 100 games would be important. In Steve Cohen's second year, you're going to get to maybe the second best record that the Mets have had in 60 years. I think that goes a lot to changing the narrative. I really do.
And I'm with you 100%. People need to realize that it's about setting standards and talking about what he's been trying to preach, and that is this new version of Mets pride and just having, like you said, changing that narrative of LOL Mets and how people view this team. And of course, I'm saying these things now. People could obviously say, well, the way that they're playing right now is like classic old school Mets that we don't like. Again, rough patches happen. Nobody is perfect. Things like this do happen within a given season. I don't care how good a team is. Look, there were times during the season that the Mariners had in 2001 when they won all those games where they had a rough patch. Even though they won all of them, they still lost a decent amount of games. So again, people need to realize that teams do lose to teams that they shouldn't lose to. It happens. It's why we play the game. Okay, that's it.
I think. Look, and I don't want to put rose-colored glasses on this, but before we go out of here, I think that the Mets are poised with the schedule that they have and some of the adversity that they've faced over that. And I'm not talking about strength of schedule here. I'm not saying, the Mets should win. I don't mean it like that, but I just mean the Mets are playing a lot of teams to end the season in the next 20 that they are objectively better than. Will they be better than them on any given night? Who knows? But with the Mets' strength of schedule, plus the need to win, because the Braves continue to be a thorn in their side, a very good team, a team that continues to win, plus the adversity that the Mets have faced over the last week or so, plus the Mets getting back a Marte, a Scherzer, a Smith, a McGill. Like, I think when you look at all of those things, I think the Mets are poised to go on a run. I really do. And
Yes.
that's why more than anything else, I'm very confident in the fact that they will get to 100 wins.
And I'm with you 100%. Just getting everyone back is the big thing. But until that happens, you got to go out there and play the games. You got to try to squeeze out a couple more wins here and there until those guys get here. But, within the next week, maybe by the next time we record, we'll have a different tone in terms of the people that we're listening to, in terms of Mets Twitter and people on the radio or whoever else. Hopefully we're talking about a much different approach in terms of what's going on with our Mets, because I can be honest, and I'm always honest. It's been that lackadaisical type thing. I don't like that feeling. I like the riding high feeling, and I want this team to get back to that point. And hopefully, and I'm feeling confident about it, within the next week, we're going to get back to that point.
I am too. And, that sounded like a good final thought from you. Do you have anything else that we didn't get to before we get out of here?
No, just the fact that we have a couple new people in here, just to echo what people in the chat were saying, make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you hit the subscribe. We're trying to build this page. We're ecstatic with everything we've done on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. Now we're trying to tackle this new thing with YouTube. So do us a favor, continue making comments, like it, subscribe to it, hit that bell for notifications. And that's it.
We appreciate all of that. And I do appreciate, David said, thanks again for the live chat. Looking forward to seeing you guys and interacting again. We appreciate that.
Thank you, David.
From you. Thank you, David. And we appreciate a lot of people who were in the chat today commenting, have also done stuff like boosted our posts on Twitter and stuff. And we're like, hey,
Yes.
we're going to go live tomorrow. I know David was one of the ones who did that. I believe Carlos as well. He's always doing that. So we do appreciate you guys doing that as well. Even if it gets, like you said, one of the people from your Mets chat is in here now. And, even if it gets one person, we appreciate every single person that takes time out of their day to listen to us, to watch us, to interact with us live is the best way. But even if you're like, look, I got to catch the replay because I'm at work, or, this week I'm super busy, I'm going to listen to the podcast that drops tomorrow. That's fine too. But we love all of that. And, we talked a lot about the upcoming schedule. I do want to mention that the Saturday afternoon game in Oakland, Mets versus the A's, I will be there. I'm actually going with the 7 line. It's the last 7
So you did get those tickets
of the season. I did get the tickets. I was trying to reach them, but I can't because I'm stuck in this corner because of my microphone. So I will be at that game. If anybody else is there, if you're listening to this and you're coming out either with the 7 line or just because if you're a Mets fan who moved out to California like I did a couple of years ago, make sure you come by, say hello. Let me know if you're going to be there because I'm absolutely looking forward to it. It's been months since I've been to a Mets game. Earlier in the season, I was back in New York and I actually went to 3 games in 1 week. And since then, I have not been to a game at all. When they were here in Southern California, I was out of town for most of it. So I missed the Dodgers. I missed the San Diego Padres series. And I didn't really want to drive to Anaheim because it was just a lot of traffic and I just didn't want to do it. But so I am looking forward to seeing the Mets in person one more time before the season ends. So if you're going to be there, please, please, please let me know. That said, guys, this has been an episode. We will be back with you next week. John Sapanaro, Matt Ibanez, till Mets do us part. If you joined late to the live stream, you can check out the entire thing on replay as soon as we end this broadcast. And of course, you can listen from start to finish tomorrow morning, all courtesy of the Chop Sports Network, wherever it is you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, Google, Amazon, all of those places and more. You can find us, and we will see you guys next week. LFGM.